What's good, everybody? Welcome to another edition of New York Got Game. We are here. It is playoff time. Knicks start the playoffs on Saturday. It will tip things off against the Atlanta Hawks, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's your boy, Dexter Henry, and I'm joined by my guys. To your left is my guy, Jonathan Macri, the dean of Knicks Film School. To my right, or your right on the screen, is my guy, CP the Fanchise of Knicks Fan TV. And y'all know how we do. Every year when the season starts, these two gentlemen join me. We talk about the season. It's always a fun time. And we also always do this before the playoffs. We usually do it in person. Our schedules were crazy this week. It wasn't going to happen. I'm still recovering from an injury, but we made it happen here. Guys, how y'all doing? How's everybody doing, man?
Feeling good, man. It's crazy. You were just like, before we went on, you're like, hey, we're going to go over some stuff maybe we said in the past. I'm like, that seemed like yesterday that the season began. I don't know how you guys feel. The season went pretty quick for me. And maybe it's just because we always knew we were going to get to this point. And it was just about like kind of killing time for the last 6 months. But yeah, man, happy to do this.
Yeah, man, the season went really quick. CP, how you doing? You've had yourself a crazy couple of days. Congratulations, just got married and everything.
Yeah.
How you doing, brother?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm hyped. You know, hype is an understatement, man. But like Jonathan said, like it just feels like yesterday we were anxiously awaiting the Abu Dhabi games and like breaking in the season and the new coach and all of that. And here we are. The season is over, and like I said, it's money time, man. It's ready to go.
So you just used the word anxious, right? And like I remember when we were sitting in studio at the start of the season, I think all of us agreed. We're like, yo, this is the most anxious, important Knicks season in 30 years. We just watched the regular season. The Knicks won the NBA Cup. They won 53 games. I know because I love you guys. I watch your content. You watch mine. We all made content where it was like, it felt great at times. Then in January, we were like, what the hell is going on here? Like, how do you guys put this season in context? Because when I thought about it, I was struggling with it a little bit too. Like, yo, how do I really feel about this season? So, like, how do you guys feel about this season that we just saw, and like, what are your maybe biggest takeaways with the Knicks in this season? What do y'all say?
I'll just say, like, I think for me, the highs were definitely fun. Like, I comparing it just to last season, because I think that's the easiest comp because it's the same basic team. Obviously, the coach is different, but for me, the first season of Cat and Bridges, I mean, obviously they won a lot of games, but if you asked me to say, like, what was your best regular season memory from the 24-25 season, I'm not sure there's an easy one that I'd be able to come up with. Whereas this season, talk about the Christmas game, talk about the Nuggets wins, talk about the Cup, the other Spurs win, even some of the wins late in the season, I think they were big. And at the same time, and I'm curious how CP feels about this, because he's more composed than I am on his shows. The lows were low, you know, and we were talking about this on a KFS town hall last night, how I think my thing was I often would read into their losses. I would project things that I thought, well, maybe this is what's really going on. And I would get myself all worked up about stuff that was maybe not, you know, I didn't need to get as worked up about. So look, it got us here. I think it was a good season, and it's certainly a memorable one, but obviously a lot to still be written here.
But J-Mac, I got to ask you, because you had a moment this season that everybody remembers. You know what I mean? You felt like the team wasn't as likable. Which listen, I understood where you were coming from on it. Right? It wasn't exactly how I felt, but I understood where you were coming from. So I think the $1 million question for everybody's got it just watching this is like, yo, is this team likable now for you? Like, do you like this team at all? Like, where are you now?
They're a lot more likable now for me than they were. Look, my issue in that moment, well, truthfully, my issue in that moment was I'd been on vacation for a week, and I'm like, I got off my butt to do this, watch this.
Yeah.
So I was in a foul mood that night. But you know what it was? I think for me that night, and it came after the Pistons game, the first game after the All-Star break, and we had just heard Mike Brown talk about how, look, these guys have punked us. We better come into this game and show what we're made of. And so to preface it with that, and then we had kind of watched a year and a half of this team, you know, consistently not live up to what their talent is. And to me, when I think about what do I love about teams, I compared it that night to the 23-24 team, you know, is the consistent effort that you know what you're going to get every night. And at times this team has been the opposite of that, and I don't like that. But to try to put a positive spin on it, I do think it's been a bit of a journey. I do think changing coaches and obviously, players getting adjusted to each other, that's been difficult at times. I have to say the last couple weeks to see it come together, and I don't know if I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but to see it come together in the way that it has, I think it has put a very different spin on what this team not only is for me, but what they could be moving forward.
So I always say, because I forgot that came right after that first Pistons game, the first game after the All-Star break. I forgot about that. If we want to call it your outburst, J-Mac.
But it was a crash out. It was.
All right, we call it crash out. You crashed out.
Yep.
We'll say you crashed out.
Full crash out.
Okay. CP, I think for a lot of people, including myself, I felt some kind of way about these Pistons games because to me, I just didn't see the fight back. And I was like, what's up with that here? We're not seeing the fight back like I feel like we should see from this team. And for some people, that's going to be a major takeaway from the season. Now, I think it's 3 games against the Pistons. They were 0-3. We saw last year they were 0-4 against the Cavs, 0-4 against the Celtics, and then things turned around in the playoffs. Does the Pistons game hang games, I should say, hang large for you or loom large for you the way you look at this season? Or do you look at it more in totality and say, look, this was still really good. There was still a lot of good things that came out of the season.
I thought there were still a lot of good things that came out of the season, especially when you consider the fact that it was a brand new system, brand new coach, the adversity that they had to face to get to this place, right? With Karl-Anthony Towns trying to adjust, Mikal Bridges trying to adjust, and Mike Brown trying to adjust to them. I think we don't really take that into consideration. We just look at, well, they finished 2 games short of the finals last year. They should be much better. But I think there's an adjustment period here and we have to give grace to that. In this, instant gratification age that we're in, we don't really consider that. So I think all things considered, and on top of the fact that this team had to deal with a multitude of injuries throughout the year that they didn't last year. And so to see the way that they finished, as Macri said, they finished the season very strong. Karl-Anthony Towns in particular finished the season very strong. The impact of Mitchell Robinson, I think there's a lot of bright spots in terms of how they finished throughout the season. You had great stories from Tyler Kolek in the NBA Cup, the Christmas Day Tyler Kolek game, the potential of a Mo Diawara for a team that's going to be a second apron team, finding those diamonds in a rough for the future. I think that was very promising. The Pistons game was rough, especially the fact that they got dominated every single game. And so it left you thinking, can they meet that level of intensity? Can they meet that level of physicality? And once again, those same weaknesses that we talked about to start the season, the same weaknesses that we saw how they ended last year, it left you wondering, are those same weaknesses going to put them in a chokehold when it comes to going up against the upper echelon defenses that tend to expose the Knicks? So time will tell, if these two teams should meet at some point in the playoffs. But nevertheless, I still feel good about this team going into this. I think they are coming together at the right time. And I feel like when this team is still playing at their best, they're still going to be a tough out. When you think about Brunson and Towns, you think about the depth. As I said, Mitch is going to be a major factor in this thing. And, we have to see really OG, Mikal Bridges, what will they bring on the offensive end, really? Defensively, I think they're going to be strong. But on the offensive end, how will they help this team going forward?
So that's interesting, too, because I had Gerard Hector from True Hoop on the other day, and he talked about how he thinks this team, if they're going to get to where they want to go, that the offensive ceiling can be really high. Like, we've seen the Knicks offense be good, and look, they finished as a top 5 offense, but he still thinks they can get to another level. And me personally, I don't know how y'all felt. I think one of the biggest developments for me was I love the way the defense, particularly after January, came together and was a lot better, where I was like, okay, I feel better about this defense, because in the middle of the season, did not like what we were seeing defensively, didn't think it was good. 2 things you guys both said, and I think is worth talking about a little bit more. The end of the season, how this team finished. And I think both you guys made good points in that. I think the biggest thing for me, and I don't know, I don't know if this was planned by Mike Brown, but we saw a lot more of the 2-man game with Cat and Brunson, and it looked good. It looked better. It looked cohesive. A lot of us have been asking to see more of that. If Mike Brown was, keeping his cards close and didn't want to show his hand early, I don't necessarily think that was a bad thing. And I'll get to Mike Brown in a second because I like how he's managed this season. But that to me, offensively, to your point, CP, that to me was one of the more encouraging things about the end of the season is what we were seeing offensively, the process of it with Brunson and Cat. Was that for you, or was there other stuff that you really liked at the end of the season?
It's what we've been looking for since the Julius days. It was what we've been looking for with Karl-Anthony Towns here last year is, can these two create the advantages that's needed for them to win these games in crunch time, right? It's all about the advantages that you create. Is Jalen going to be able to create those advantages in isolation against the Dyson Daniels of the world, the Asar Thompsons? Like, it's still going to be a tough road against some gritty wing defenders. You know, where is Karl-Anthony Towns going to emerge in terms of his advantage creation? Like, the Knicks are going to have to find that because they're going to go up against the cream of the crop in terms of the best defenses in the league. And so I was very encouraged to see that. Remember, going back early in the season, Mike Brown did say, and the reason that he wanted them running in that read and react offense is that they wanted them playing off of instinct, and that later on he would implement some more plays in the playoffs so that they're not as predictable. But I think the same thing applies here, is that I don't think he wanted to show his hand and, you know, give the league some more film in terms of how these two guys can operate in terms of that two-man game. And so that's why I think we saw a little bit more of it as the season ended. And look, I think there's more to come here in the playoffs between these two guys because it was spectacular, especially against the Hawks. But as the season finished, I love what I saw between those two guys.
Yeah, we're going to get to the Hawks, people. Don't worry. We're going to get to the Hawks. But I loved how that two-man game looked against the Hawks. What about you, J-Mac? What in terms of the end of the season, because both you guys hit on that. So what did you love?
I'm happy that CP was like threw it back to like Julius, because the funny thing, I don't know how you guys feel, but like the part of the January 2024 Knicks, you want to talk about really throwing it back, was it seemed like Julius was at his best as a basketball player on that team. Like, it seemed like it all fit suddenly, and particularly the partnership with Brunson, and not to throw dirt on anyone's grave, but exchanging RJ Barrett for OG Anunoby kind of made the puzzle pieces finally fit. And then, of course, we know what happened from there. And then they got Cat. And, you know, every team, and I don't want to go too big picture here because I want to focus it on Cat and Jalen, but I think this is very relevant. We talk a lot about identity, right? Like, what is a team's identity? And it's kind of like a talking head, hot take type of thing to say. And at the same time, I think it's pretty relevant because it's like, all right, when nothing's going right, what are you going to fall back on? And I think there's been the one thing the Knicks have always had over the last 2 years is that it's a never say die team. They could be down 10, 15, 20. They're always going to find a way back in the game. That's kind of an identity, but it's not a play style identity, right? Yeah. So when you trade for Cat, you're basically saying, all right, we think our identity is we're going to have this unguardable two-man game, and we're going to be able to defend well enough around it. We said this when they made the trade. And for 2 years, that hasn't really been the case. So now to finally see it, and in terms of what is interesting to me about it, look, I'd love to support the idea that Mike Brown's playing some kind of 4D chess here and that this was always the long game. And yet you hear Cat at his locker, I forget after which game it was, but talking about, we've had really great conversations the last few weeks. And I'm hearing that, and I'm like, those conversations could have happened, a year and a half
ago. 2 years ago? 2 years ago? No, a year and a half ago, right. We could
exactly. Right. And and look, and you never know Cat, right? But I think he's honest, and I thought that was interesting.
So
very interesting.
Yeah, so I think that's interesting too, right? The timing of it. And then part of me is like, yeah, well, you sometimes have a process of things. And I think sometimes I'm going to take something CP just said, instant gratification. We all want that. We want to see this quickly. This should have happened already. We should have seen some more of this. And then it doesn't happen this way. But we're here. And now you just made me think about another word, J-Mac, identity. Okay. And identities can form and change and things can happen over time. But do we know this team's identity as they head into the playoffs? Because you're kind of talking about how it's been forming this two-man identity with Brunson and Cat that we didn't see for the last year and a half until recently. Yeah. But do we now, as we get ready for this playoff series against Atlanta, do we know this team's identity, or are we still? Do you think it's still forming? And is that a good thing?
Yeah, I don't think we know it. I think it is still forming, but I think we're moving closer to what the vision was when they put this starting five together, which is no hiding spots, meaning whatever defense you're going to throw at us, we will be able to find a way to exploit it. Whether it's we're going to hunt your weakest defender, whether we're going to be able to get the most advantageous switch and go after that, whether it's you're not going to be able to hide a small guy on OG Anunoby, you're not going to be able to hide a weak defender on Mikal Bridges, or even tapping into the bench. We could throw double big at you and we could beat you that way. We could make Josh Hart the screener. We could make Josh Hart, put him in the short roll and let him make play. Like, they have all of these different weapons that in theory should be able to work not only well together, but well together in different ways, which again, to go back to what I was saying before, that was the frustrating part, is that I felt like we rarely saw them actualize on all of that talent. They're moving closer to it. Are we there yet? We're going to find out in the next, hopefully, 2 months.
Yeah, we're gonna find out. How do you feel about the identity, CP? I know I've talked to you about this. You're like, I'm a big process guy. I like the process of things going, and the process can still evolve here, in my opinion. But do you feel like you know what this team's identity is right now?
I feel like we're getting there, man. I just like the way that they ended this season. And like Macri said, there's so many different facets to this team. Number one, you start off with their ball movement, right? The way that they're moving the ball. Yes, they want to be a high volume 3-point shooting team. They want to also get out in transition. Look at the way that Mikal Bridges plays, and especially to start the games, just playing fast, getting out in transition, off of those live rebounds, off of the turnovers, with Hart being able to be that secondary playmaker. Then when you get Mitch in, you can get a little bit grittier. Right? Mitch is going to be that dog on the boards. He's going to get you those block shots. He's going to do the things to get you those second chance opportunities. But then listen, man, when the fourth quarter comes, the team with the best fourth quarter net rating, and that's all in number 11's hands. And if he's in his groove, if he has that shooter's bounce, it's going to be Jalen in isolation or creating for everybody else, which we've seen him do very well, as I said, to end the season.
Listen, I know you guys also pay a lot of attention to what fans are saying on social media, and then also the talking heads, right? even part of the media, which I'm a part of. And you just mentioned the fourth quarter net rating for the Knicks, which is the best in the league. I feel like that has been not talked about enough in enough places. And listen, I'm not all like, this, you got to say this about the Knicks, and the national media says about the Knicks, and the Knicks for clicks, industrial complexes, our guy Jeff Johnson will say, and all that other stuff. We've had a lot of talks with this team when it comes to their identity about, okay, they don't get off the good starts, the starting unit. We've heard a lot about that, and that's true. The facts are the facts. I'm not running from that. But what CP you just said about the fourth quarter rating, I agree. I think that's something that this team can really hang their hat on, because they've been so good at it. That's not a fluke. You've done this across the whole season. You've closed games out well. You've got one of the best closers in the game in Jalen Brunson. And other guys have been able to step up. We've seen it time and time again. I love that you made that point. I think that should be a huge part of this team's identity. I really, really believe that. And it should give them confidence in the playoffs. I think it really should give them confidence in the playoffs. But, guys, I got to say this too. When I was thinking about the season and talking to you guys, I said, okay, what did I really like about this season? Maybe it was, what's the thing I liked or something I didn't like from the season? And for me, I really liked, we'll get to Mike Brown more, but I really liked how he managed the season and the roster. I thought it was a breath of fresh air. I really liked how he did that. I think my dislikes, and this might tie into something you said earlier, J-Mac, is the inconsistencies that we kind of saw from this team at times. And, I don't want to just rag on one player, but Mikal Bridges at times looked great. I still wish he got to the line more. I'm not asking for him to be a 20-point scorer, but sometimes him being maddeningly inconsistent is just so frustrating for me as somebody who watches and covers the team.
Well,
what
you just said, though, what you just said, think about what you just said. You liked the way Mike Brown went about managing the team, right?
I did.
That included a lot of experimentation. That included deep bench. That includes different rotations, right? Different lineups and things. So doesn't it make sense, thinking about 10,000 foot view, that we're going to get some inconsistency? I understand you're talking about Mikal specifically, which is maybe it's different. But even think about him. Comes into the season, kind of like, oh, Mikal, you're going to be like the quasi point guard. You're going to be bringing the ball up. You're going to be doing this and that. And I even think his role changed and evolved over the course of the year, which, like, look, Mikal frustrates me. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But to have to have him focus on maybe a different role, a changing role, while also doing a lot of the little things that his team obviously needs him to do, why they traded for him. I think even, CP, I think you used the word like kind of giving grace to this team. I think we could give a little bit of grace, right, to Mikal Bridges after the season he's had.
You know what? I hadn't thought about it like that.
I hadn't
either. You know what? And I think that we all can get sometimes. I'm guilty of this too. In that, man, I want to see this guy hit this, or not numbers, but like play in this kind of way and feel like it's more part of the team. And we don't think enough times about role and adjustments of roles. And you're right. If you're gonna give credit to Mike Brown, me particularly, I'm calling myself out. If I'm gonna give credit to Mike Brown for his malleability and how he's been able to adjust with the lineup, well, then things change for guys in the lineup.
Yes.
And let's keep it a buck here too. We saw Mike Brown at time in games bench Mikal Bridges, not playing down the stretch of games. Go with a Landry Shamet. I remember Landry Shamet or Jose Alvarado against Houston in the 18-point comeback at the Garden, right? And he went real small in that. We've seen him make those adjustments. I haven't heard any players complain about it. Now, I don't know if they are behind the scenes. I haven't heard anything being around the team. That's not what I've heard. But to your point, J-Mac, that doesn't mean it's not always easy, right, for players. And that doesn't mean there's still not an adjustment period for that. And so, yeah, I see your point. Could have impacted Mikal. And with malleability is going to come some inconsistency to get to the process. I said I'm a process guy to get to where we are now. I think your point that you make is a good one. I think it's a good one.
It's interesting. Mike or Tom Thibodeau, known as like kind of the hardest coach, right, to play for because he's very demanding and everything. And yet, I think going from Tibbs to Mike Brown for a lot of these guys really challenged them in a different sort of way, because Mike Brown, I think, put a lot of these guys in I don't want to say uncomfortable positions, but he really did challenge them in ways that Thibodeau, in a strange way, did not challenge them. Like, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, these guys are built, Deuce McBride, Mitch, like these guys are built a certain way. Like they jived with Tibbs, and I think Mike Brown came in different ways for every player had, wanted to kind of see just like what all these guys were capable of. And again, to feed into the conversation about why we got the inconsistencies we got, that to me is as good an explanation as any.
CP, what'd you make of? Because I like the job Mike Brown did in year one. I think when you get to what we've all been talking about, which is the process of what we saw at the end of the season that the three of us seem to like, I think he did a good job in year one. Do you look at him as somebody that had real impact, or is this maybe a little bit overstated because we know what the expectations are and it's for this team? It's finals or bust, championship or bust, whatever you want to say. What do you make of the job that Mike Brown did in year one? And don't worry, J-Mac, I'm going to ask you because we know you're Tibbs guy, so I'm going to ask you, but I have to ask CP too.
Regular season, fine. But he's here to get this team to the promised land. So it's still an inconclusive. But I think if you think about the things that they wanted from their next head coach, he came in here and did what he was asked to do. Just deepen the rotation, develop players while being under the pressure to win. When you look at Kolek, you look at Diawara, McCullough got in some action. McCullough started some games this season. So they had some solid contributions from their younger players. And like I said, this is a team that in the second apron, you're not going to have that many opportunities to find those diamonds in the rough. And I think, they have some promise there for the future. They wanted someone who was going to be more collaborative with the coaching staff and with the medical team. And when you look at the fact that he several games gave credit to Rick Brunson, you saw Chris Gent calling some huddles. You saw Brendan O'Connor calling some huddles. And so that aspect, you certainly check the boxes there. Now, the friction with Towns and Bridges, is that just typical, workplace disagreements and you come together for the common cause? We'll see what happens when this thing is all said and done. But I think by and large, he did a good job this year.
Yeah, I happen to agree. J-Mac, you're Tibbs guy, so everybody wants to know. What do you think about the job?
I always approach or appreciated the way Tibbs went about his business. I liked more the man. I think he did a great coaching job. Don't get me wrong, but I appreciated the man more than the job he did, and a lot of the questions that a lot of people had. I had the same questions too. My only thing with Mike Brown all year was the relationship with Cat, and was he approaching this player in the way that you need to approach a guy who, let's be honest, he is mercurial is not the right word, but you got to know how to manage Cat, and I don't think that that's unfair or me being unkind to say that. And you look up, and over the last 2 months, Cat's been, other than like Nikola Jokic, has there been a better center in the league than Karl-Anthony Towns over the last 2 months, considering both ends of the floor? So I've kind of, I've joked about it on Knicks Film School, but like, I don't really care if Karl-Anthony Towns is best friends with Mike Brown or he hates him with the fire of 1,000 suns and he's playing this way to spite him. It doesn't matter to me as a Knicks fan, because the fact that Mike Brown has been able to get the production out of Cat that he has gotten, and gotten him and Brunson to be on the same page after, let's be honest, like, they played well both under Thibodeau, but I don't know that we ever saw any great kinship between them under the last head coach. So I'm not sure there's a bad thing to say about Mike Brown right now, but CP said the only words that matter, which is like, now we're going to find out, because their feet is to the fire here.
Yeah, Mike Brown's real test, where he's really going to be judged. We can give him a grade, whatever we want to do. It's going to be about what happens in the playoffs. I mean, this whole team, this whole organization is going to be judged on what happens here in the playoffs. You brought up Cat, J-Mac, and I think Cat is such an interesting topic through the season with the fans. And there was a lot of talk. And you and I had like an offline conversation about this, and the fans wanted, we should just pound the ball into Cat and, play through him in that kind of way, which I disagree with. I actually have seen the vision of the way Mike Brown is trying to play with him, and I think we've seen the fruition of that. Here's what I say. I think Cat's biggest credit that he should be given for in the second half of this season, to me, is cut down on the stupid fouls. That has been the biggest thing for me. The thing that I think drives a lot of fans crazy, including myself, is the dumb fouls. And I said this to you guys because I was not a big fan of the Cat trade when it was first made. I was a little concerned about fit and his ability to stay on the floor. What he has done to me in the second half is stay on the floor, play under control. We saw the evolution at the end with the two-man game with Brunson. I have liked all of that process. And I don't know, maybe is it early for us to say the Cat is, do we think the Cat has finally figured it out? Or CP, is this a thing of like, yeah, you got to show me. We got to see in the playoffs now. We have to see now in the playoffs. Or are you like, hey, this is the Karl-Anthony Towns we've been waiting for? Where are you on Cat?
It's a bit of both in terms of, I think the discipline has been fantastic. The discipline has been really good. The decision-making has been a lot better in terms of, him deciding to take the ball off the dribble, him on his drives. He's been much cleaner. He hasn't been hitting the deck, which against those teams that are better in transition is going to kill you defensively. And so by and large, I think he's been good. When the tests get harder, is when we're going to see what's really good. I think this matchup against Atlanta is tailor-made for Karl-Anthony Towns to dominate. Should Mike Brown and the Knicks decide to run the offense through him, get him involved, have him spacing out as a shooter, have him attacking a Congo and those guys off the dribble. We don't know if Londale is going to be available for this series, but I think Karl-Anthony Towns, he has to make his stamp on this series to set a good tone for the playoffs. But I'm a believer right now, man. I like the way that he's finished, been strong on the boards. Defensively, he's had his moments, and he's forcing turnovers and things of that nature. I'm a believer in Towns right now, man.
All right, listen, hey, not everybody's been believing all the time in Karl-Anthony Towns. And J-Mac, I've heard you talk about Towns. You've had your monologues on how frustrating of a player he can be to watch at times. Do we have you in the believer status like CP? Are you in the believer zone, or are you praying at the church of Cat? Are you doing that yet?
There's a lot that I have been uncertain about Cat over the years. One thing I am pretty sure of is he likes New York, and he likes it a lot better than Milwaukee, or name some other cities potentially. But that's
don't say Memphis. You might get in trouble like somebody else. Don't do that. Don't do that.
No. Look, he has been their best player for the last 2 months, and you're not going to find a bigger Jalen Brunson fan than me. But he is
that is a stunning take coming from you.
Well, I mean, I didn't.
I don't disagree with you though. Just to be clear,
at the All-Star break, I did not think he was playing. I'm not even sure I would have said he was playing like a top 40 player. And I think over the last 2 months, I mean, look, he's probably going to make All NBA, and that's that's the only 15 guys make that. So that I think is, and it'll be deserved. I think that's the leap. Effective field goal percentage last since the All-Star break, 63%, 52 before. He has cut down on the fouls. But ultimately, we're gonna find out. I'm believing, but with the caveat, because I think you think about like the old video games we used to play where you would get like, it wasn't one final boss. It was like you would have the first boss and then the second boss a little harder, third boss. If this playoffs goes the way that we all want it to go for the Knicks, it could look like that, because I completely agree with CP. I think this Atlanta matchup, they don't have anyone who can guard him, and if they utilize him, if they lean into him, this could be a 4 or 5 game series. We'll see if that actually happens. I know we're going to get to it in a second. I think Boston, obviously tougher, but he has had success against Boston. We know he can have success against Boston. Then if it's Detroit, well, then we know what they are capable with their physicality and the whole thing. And then if it's OKC as the last boss, look, I'm getting ahead of myself, but you got to start from square one. And I actually think square one has been the last 2 months. Now let's carry it forward into a playoff series where in theory the matchup should be okay. And then we'll go from there.
I agree. I think let's see. I will say this. We'll get to the Hawks in a second. Cat should cook in the series. Should. Keyword is should. Should happen. We'll see if it happens. I don't know, but I like the process, to bring that word up again. No Sixers, but I like the way he's been playing thus far since the second half of the season. Last thing, just to put a bow on this season, because when you guys sat with me in the preseason, I remember we did this, and I didn't look at all these stuff, but I was just pulling up some of it now. We did this thing where we did all of these bold takes that we had, and a lot of us, we have our takes, we got our predictions, we think things are going to happen. I guess maybe I'll ask you guys both, like, what's the thing you thought might happen this season that didn't happen the way that you thought it would? And it could be good or bad, because sometimes things are for the positive and the negative. Is there a take you had, a thing you thought would happen before the season that maybe didn't play out the way you thought it would?
Definitely the Detroit matchup, man. I don't even think I had Detroit in the top 5 of the East this year, to be completely honest with you. When they lost and they lost Tim Hardaway Jr. and Schroeder, I thought those guys were so impactful for them last year. But what I didn't account for was that the fact that this is a team loaded with lottery picks who all leveled up another notch. When you think about Cade, obviously, but Ron Holland was amazing. Asar Thompson has been incredible. Jalen Duren, an MIP candidate. I mean, all of their top picks have taken a huge step, and they're very, very young. I mean, the Dennis Jenkins pickup, what he's given them off the bench. So I did not see the Detroit dominance in the East and dominance over the Knicks at all. And so that's why I expected it to be more of a 2-team race between the Knicks and the Cavs. And I gave the Knicks a good chance to be at the top of the East.
Yeah, I thought it would happen. What about you, J-Man?
I mean, in terms of my takes on the East, I thought Indiana was going to have a really good season. It didn't happen so much. And I thought Boston would be good, but like everybody else, I didn't think they would be this. I guess concerning the Knicks, the biggest, I don't know if I would say it's a surprise, but like, I did think that we were going to get more offense directed towards some of the more ancillary pieces, and Mikal Bridges in particular. And I think there was obviously an effort made early on to that, and I'm curious if what went into the fact that the role that he started with is not the role that we've kind of seen him take on over the last few months. That's interesting to me. And then I guess the only other thing, and this maybe leads into like larger conversations, is a lot of the criticism, or let me take it a step back. Some of the thought process behind Tibbs being let go was that, didn't take input from the front office, right?
Yeah.
And you would have thought some of that input would have involved, hey, we have a lot of shooters on this team. You're playing Josh Hart, 49 minutes a game. What gives? And look, Josh Hart is playing a lot fewer minutes. I think he averaged about 30 minutes a game. So it's not that that Mike Brown has played him as much, but like Josh Hart's as much his guy almost as he was Tibbs's guy. Like he's closing games. He's obviously still a starter. We have, they go 5 out sometimes, but it's not like 5 out has been some massive part of the plan for Mike Brown. Same thing with double bigs, honestly. Like, again, we've seen some Mitch and Cat. But coming off of last year, you would have thought, oh, maybe the front office wants more of that. We haven't seen as much. So maybe some of the things we thought we were going to see, we haven't seen as much of.
Yeah, I think you just hit on a couple things that I thought we were going to see that we didn't. And I remember us talking about this beginning of the season, whether they would start the double big lineup all year.
Mike Brown started the year.
He did start the year with
the preseason, right?
Yeah. And I thought you'd maybe see more Josh Hart off the bench to even keep his minutes down. I thought that. We obviously didn't see that. I thought this team would play faster. That's I think one of the biggest shots to me. I thought they might even be like top 10-ish in pace. I expected that. That hasn't been the way things have gone. I thought the offense might be a little bit more dynamic than I think we ended up seeing. Now, to be fair, I think we're starting to see a little bit more evolution of the offense towards the end of the season, and I think that's a good thing, particularly for some of the secondary pieces I think that we're talking about, whether it's Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby. But yeah, I think for me, I thought this team would play. We heard that a lot. I remember being there on media day, Mike Brown talking about, I want to play faster. I want to play with more pace. It's not really how it played out, right? Like they didn't play. It's a little bit better than last year, but it's not that much different. So I think that's the shock for me. Maybe that's the thing I thought was going to go down, but it didn't. But okay, we don't got much time, so let's get to what the people want to talk about. That's the playoffs. We're here. It is Knicks-Hawks. Let me go with this first, guys. I've loved the last couple of years that the Knicks haven't ducked the smoke. They have not tried to avoid playing anybody. They've been like, hey, whoever we're going to play in the first round, so we're going to play in the first round. I think the three of us here would sit here and say, if the Knicks had played the Raptors in the first round, I was going to pick a sweep. I'm going to say that. I would have picked a sweep because I don't think Toronto had anything for the Knicks, right? Anything at all whatsoever. I think the Hawks are a tougher matchup, right? Got respect on the Hawks. I think personally, some people are doing a little bit too much with the Hawks. I put my prediction out here, so I'm gonna say it right here. Well, actually, let me hold on to prediction for a second. Do you think the Hawks at all are an uncomfortable matchup for the Knicks? That's part one of the question. And did you like the process of how the Knicks ended up playing the Hawks because the Magic couldn't do what they had to do against the Celtics C team, I shall say. I'll call it the C team. Did you like the process of how the Knicks ended up getting the Hawks? And do you think the Hawks are in any way an uncomfortable matchup?
We went live on the final Sunday of the season a little earlier than we were going to, just so we could do a live watch along of the Magic Celtics game. That was, I'm actually surprised that they didn't catch Jamal Mosley walking out of the arena with a box with his personal items after that game. But whatever, that's neither here nor there. Look, the Knicks are in the business of winning a championship this year. I don't know of any team that has ever accomplished that goal where we looked back and were like, well, thank God they got that first round matchup, because if they had gotten a different first round matchup, then they might not have got, that's not a thing. That's not to say that teams who have won championships have not been like, or it was not said before a first round game, like, oh, they might be challenged. Think back. I know you guys remember the 2011 Mavs, right? There were people who picked, I think it was Portland in the first round that year against the Mavs, if memory serves.
I think they
but
played
like
the Blazers.
And there were people picking the Blazers over them. So look, I think the Hawks are a very, very good team. I think there's an argument that they might be they're certainly one of the 12 best teams in the league at this point. I think not only do they have real talent, I think their talent fits together very well. The reason why I think that they might be getting a little bit too much respect, specifically in this matchup, is I think for all that they are good at, and I don't want to rehash what we already talked about, but the one thing that they don't have is the ideal matchup for Towns. Yep. And they have gotten to where they've gotten to since the All-Star break on the back of the second-ranked defense in the league again since the break. I don't see how they're going to be able to stop this Knicks offense. And so then it comes down to the other end. I actually think that's going to be a bigger challenge for the Knicks defense to stop Atlanta's offense, because I think they have some unique ways that they could put pressure on Jalen Brunson in particular. Because that's the other thing. If there's nobody good to cover Towns, I don't know that there's a great hiding spot for Jalen Brunson. You'd say Dyson Daniels. Guess who's the second best offensive rebounding guard in the league is Dyson Daniels. So you try to hide him there, all of a sudden you got Dyson Daniels crashing the glass. I'm getting into nitty gritty. I think that's going to be the bigger challenge, but I do think the Hawks are a team worthy of respect. I think they are good. I think they're a legitimately good team.
Yeah, I think they're a legitimately good team. Did the matchup make you uncomfortable, CP? And I want to say, I do agree with J-Mac. Your path is going to be your path to the finals. Like, nobody's looking back and it's like, oh, you had this first round easy. You're going to be tested. And I think this series can set the Knicks up to be better prepared for the next series, which likely will be Boston. Yeah. I think this series helps them in that way. But like, what do you think about this matchup with Atlanta? Are you comfortable, uncomfortable? How you feel about it?
I'm comfortable, man. I don't think that I'm like exactly what Macri said. If this Knicks team is going to accomplish what they set out to accomplish, then you can't be, nervous about a first round matchup against the Atlanta Hawks. And it's not to put anything past the Hawks. It's just to say, hey, if this team is built like that, then they're going to have to get past his team. And I think they can in convincing fashion. Like I said, I like how this Knicks team finished the year. I think they have found that switch, and they will find that switch. If they go back to how they were embarrassed in that Eastern Conference Finals loss against the Pacers, they have to carry that with them into this first round, man, and take care of business. I spoke to Hawks assistant coach Brian Bailey, close family friend of mine. I talked to him about that team and what really changed for them. And he talked about the fact that, they're a collective group. They all have buy-in. They all know their roles, and no egos in that locker room right now. So I thought that was very interesting to move from the Trae Young era where you think, okay, maybe they're heading into, partial rebuild, a little competitive, but they've been fantastic. Give them a lot of credit. As Macri said, I think the offensive end from Atlanta and testing that Knicks defense, yes, you could probably expect Jalen to start on Dyson Daniels, but from the offensive rebounding perspective, I worry about that with Jalen, with McCallum, with the Knicks guards. Because, yes, you can throw your double bigs out there, and Towns and Mitch should have that advantage. But if Atlanta's going to be shooting more threes and those are leading to longer rebounds, that is where, especially Jalen, he's very susceptible to that, to those guards. He's just, he's looking up, ball watching, and next thing you know, his guy's just zipping right around him and getting an offensive rebound, and he getting a second chance opportunity. Will Quinn Snyder deploys some schemes too? Set Onyeka Okongwu free. Not to say that he's a name, but he's a guy who earlier this season was splashing threes on the Knicks. And so those type of things give a young team confidence. And then on the defensive end, they start to barrel down on you. But where I think the Knicks are going to have the edge, as Macri said, is the Towns factor and then the experience factor, the closer factor. We saw that with this team when these two teams last played in crunch time. It was the Brunson show, and he was unstoppable. And it was Atlanta playing, hey, my turn, your turn. Is it going to be Jalen Johnson? Is it going to be Nickeil Alexander-Walker? Who is going to be the guy that can help this Hawks team deliver in crunch time? And that's where I'm going to give the Knicks the edge. A lot of people want to think that this Hawks team is similar to the Pacers of last year, but the Pacers had a dynamo at the point guard position, Tyrese Halliburton, the ultimate decision maker, and Pascal Siakam, who's had championship experience. I mean, and the Rick Carlisle factor. So it's a little bit different. Plus their depth. I don't think the Hawks have the depth, nearly as much depth as the Knicks do in this series, and so that's why I'm going to give it to advantage Knicks.
Yeah, I've got advantage Knicks. You guys hit on a bunch of stuff, and I'll be doing. And it's funny because I've rewatched all the 3 games they played this year. In the first game, I kind of threw out a lot of stuff because Trae Young was featured in the game. The team has been different since then, but you guys hit on some stuff that we're going to be doing a little bit of a film breakdown later in the week. And it's some of the things Macri, you actually hit on 2 of the things that I've highly targeted to watch, which is one, how the Hawks generate threes. And they do a good job of doing it and in interesting ways with certain players. 2 was how they guarded Jalen Brunson. And then what do I think they can throw at Jalen Brunson here in the postseason? Now, look, we know this Hawks team, Dyson Daniels. You've got Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They'll even find switching and throwing Okongwu on him at times, right? They've got a lot of length with this team. I'm with you guys too. And one of the third things I highlighted to look at was how can Cat kill this team? And when you look at the games this year with Cat, he looks like a great 3-level scorer against this team. If the 3 is there and he takes it, it's fantastic. If they're going to give him something in the mid-range, he can do it too. If he's under control, guys, and goes to the basket, he can kill them there too. They really don't have an answer. And I think we really saw this last Monday, in the last matchup. They really don't have an answer for Cat. And I really feel like that's going to swing the series. And I think CP is 100% right in that. I understand where people are trying to compare this to the Pacers in terms of the way they play with pace, but this ain't the same. They don't got the experience. And I think the Knicks experience is a huge, huge factor in this series. Now, what I'll say, guys, is I'd love to hear you guys chime in on this. The experience and the factor is a huge, huge thing for the Knicks. And we know the Knicks have been battle tested and through the playoffs before. But for me, it is imperative, and you guys are going to have your watch parties on Saturday, game 1. They got to come out and punch this team in the mouth.
Yeah.
You cannot play with your food. You cannot play with your food at the beginning of the series. I'm going to put this for game 2 as well. You can't play with your food here. You have to let this team know you were on a championship path. You're serious for business. And when you go back to it, down to the ATL, they're like, oh shoot, this Knicks team is focused. How important is it to get off to a good start? That's how I feel. They can't play with it. We talked about starts all year long with this team. Yeah. They can't play with this right now. That's the way I feel.
I think, look, the start of game 1 obviously be important. The result of game 1 will be important. For as much as the Hawks being the matchup should not and cannot be the thing that like prevents the Knicks from winning a championship or not, whatever. I do think how this series goes will tell us a lot about what this team is made of and what they are capable of this year. Because if they again, I want to repeat what CP said because I want to make sure I'm not angering anybody. This is no disrespect to Atlanta. This Atlanta, I think they're legit. I really do think they're a really good team.
Agreed.
The Knicks should be able to win this series in 5 games at most.
Yep.
I agree.
That is how this should go. Not to say that if it goes 6 or God forbid 7, not to say that is an automatic death knell on the Knicks' chances to make the finals, but I would feel a lot more confident moving forward if the Knicks, because what does it come down to? It comes down to just, those patches of games that we have seen from the Knicks periodically this year where it's like, have these guys ever played together before? Like what that's what they need to eliminate. And that's up to them ultimately. It's not, and again, not that the Hawks can't do some things to fluster them. And it's gonna. And the last thing, because both of you guys, I think, brought up the rebounding. From the first half of the season, before the break to after the break, Hawks went from bottom 10, both sides of the boards, offensive, defensive rebounding, to top 5 in both. So that's going to be one of those things. If the Knicks need to be locked in on the glass on both ends, otherwise, that is a way that the Hawks are going to be able to exploit them.
It's a great point because the Knicks they didn't do a good job on the glass in that last matchup. The Hawks got a ton of offense. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head. 19 offensive rebounds. Thank you, J-Mac, because I remember that they were not doing a good job on the glass. CP, a lot. I love what J-Mac said there about how this, because even I'm just talking about the start of the series, but how this series goes. Are you feeling better about the Knicks if they do this in 5? Dare I say they do this in 4? I mean, hell, they do this in 4. I think all of us will be on top of the world. But
yeah,
if it does, I think that does matter. Now, I didn't think I really thought about it until J-Mac said it, but I think it does matter for sure how they look in this series, how they finish the series. And I'm not even going to go to if they lose the series. I'm not even going to talk about that. But
yeah,
how they handle the Hawks matters here. I think. Do you agree with that?
It definitely matters, and to piggyback what Macri said, their decision making to start these games, the turnovers early in that final game between those two teams. I mean, you saw some of the most ridiculous sloppy passes and those type of things, especially in the playoffs, can give the other team confidence. The Hawks, top 5 in terms of turnover percentage. You don't want to give them opportunities to kill your already, vulnerable transition defense. You don't want to give a team like that those opportunities. They said they're already practicing with Madison Square Garden arena noise during their practices, right? So you got to come out with good intentions, with your proper intensity to really meet the moment. How would I feel if they get through this team in 4 or 5 games? Listen, man, I felt very good. I was at the Garden, Game 1, Eastern Conference Finals against the Pacers. I felt very good in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes left. I'm daydreaming about the finals, okay? And then all of a sudden, it turned into a nightmare. So, hey, they get past it.
Why you gotta go bring up old stuff, man? Why you gotta bring up old stuff? I'm
sitting right there daydreaming, like, oh my God, they're really gonna do this. And it wasn't meant to be. So one game at a time, one series at a time. But I think they have a great chance. And if they come with their A game, they should be able to do it, as Macri said, in 5 games.
CP with the coach speak. One game at a time, one series at a time, one possession at a time is what you got to do. So we've all talked about Cat and how we think this should be a good series for him. Is he your X factor in this series? Because I'll throw my X factor out here, and I think he's going to be my X factor through a lot of the playoffs here, and that's going to be Josh Hart. And for me, with Josh Hart, it's about decisiveness. Is he going to be willing to let the ball fly when he's open? How teams guard him if they throw their centers on him? I think we even could see the Hawks do this. They might throw a Kongu on him and try to throw a smaller guy on Cat. I think you could see some of that in this series. How decisive is Josh Hart going to be? So while I think Karl-Anthony Towns is a huge factor here, and I think he's got to cook against this team, Josh Hart's my X factor. Is Cat your X factor, guys, or is it somebody else?
Cat's the X factor in every series he plays.
I don't think that's wrong either. I hear you. You're right.
Yeah. So Josh Hart, I think, is a good one. I actually am gonna, if it's not other than Cat, I think you look at Wingstop in general, because a stat that I just double checked it because I wanted to make sure I didn't mess this up.
Yeah.
So last season in the playoffs, they played, 18 playoff games. They were 9-2 in games where they turned the other team over at least 14 times. They were 1 in however many games is left. I guess 1 in 6 in games where they did not. I think when you see this team at their best, it's not that they turn into the Oklahoma City Thunder or anything, because that's not their defensive personality. But when they are getting into passing lanes and when they are forcing the issue on the defensive end, as opposed to always reacting, as opposed to it's feeling like you're being pushed against the wall, and OG, McCall, and Josh. That's not to say the other guys, Shamet, Deuce, and even Jordan Clarkson now can't get involved in that aspect as well. But I want to see those guys hold up their end of the bargain, because, again, to go back to the thing that I said earlier, the bigger challenge, stopping the Hawks. If OG, Bridges, and Hart come to play defensively, I'm going to repeat myself. This is a 5-game series at most.
I like that. I like that. The good stat about the turnovers and the defense there. That's something to keep an eye on with this team. Who's your X factor, CP? Who you got? Are you still rocking with Cat in this too?
Yeah. Well, first, I couldn't agree more with what Macri is saying about turning the teams over. It's been one of my keys for this team going into this season. And to me, what will make them a championship team? It's look at OKC, right? Like, yes, the Shea brilliance is always there, but this team's ability to turn teams over and generate easy points in transition, it's just so many ways to slice you up. And that's what the Knicks need to become. And it starts with Wingstop and with Mitchell Robinson out there getting out in transition. Because look, for a team like the Knicks that are going to be shooting a lot of jumpers, they're not going to be 40% from 3 every night in the playoffs. And they're not exactly the team that is going to put a lot of pressure on the rim all the time or to get to the free throw line. So that getting out in transition is really going to help them. But to me in this series, I think Cat should be able to sleepwalk into an all-star performance. To me, it's OG Anunoby. In that final game between these two guys, we saw a lot of Josh Hart on Jalen Johnson. I think that was Mike Brown holding things a little bit closer to the vest, even though Hart didn't start the game off well against Johnson. He finished with a couple of key plays there. Yeah. I think OG being able to match Jalen Johnson's physicality I think that's going to be the key there. I wonder if he's going to start the game off against him, but if he doesn't, you can be sure he's going to end the game against Jalen Johnson. And look, Alexander Walker has been a dynamo for sure, but that size and strength of Jalen Johnson, his three-point ability, that the dog has to be unleashed against him, man. So I think I'm putting OG as my X factor. And also on the offensive end, will his three-point shot be there? And if Atlanta closes him out, can he put the ball on the floor and make things happen? I think that's going to be something to watch against OG, how he handles it and doesn't turn the ball over.
Quick stat on OG in 3 games against the Hawks this year has gotten to the line 21 times, which is a team high against the Hawks this season. So he has great point, CP, because he has put the ball on the floor. And we know that doesn't always end well for OG.
Yeah, it does not.
Especially when there's some physicality at the rim. But that's what I like about the fact that he has gotten to the line, playoffs officiated differently, but hopefully that continues.
Yeah, that's a good one, CP. OG's a good X factor here. All right, guys. Last thing before we wrap, I'm sure everybody's excited to know your predictions. Prediction time. What are we going with? I think we're all picking the Knicks. It feels weird.
Can CP go first?
Yeah, CP. Oh, this means that J-Mac has been deliberating on this. He doesn't know where he's gonna go. He doesn't know how he's gonna pick. I know where I'm going. Where are you going, CP? What's your pick for this series? Knicks-Hawks.
I think it's a sweep, man.
Ooh, CP calling the sweep.
I think the Knicks are bringing the brooms out. You know, there's no home court advantage here for the Hawks. The 2 All-Stars, Captain Clutch. This is his time to shine. 30-point per game playoff performer. Karl-Anthony Towns' series, the dominance. I told you about Wingstop, OG. I know Mitchell Robinson is going to be, Big Country is going to be dominating in this series. I'm going with a sweep, man. I'm going with it.
I love
bringing the brooms to Atlanta.
I didn't know if anybody was going to say a predicted sweep. I didn't know it. You've done it. I like it. I like that you said it. We've seen a lot of Knicks and 6 out there. A lot of Knicks and 6 picks out there, man. A lot of it. J-Mac, you just went back in your seat because you were so shocked by
I'm not shocked. No, listen. This is why CP's the franchise. Look, I was leaning for most of the week Knicks and 6. I'll be honest with you. I was leaning Knicks and 6. And then I mentioned we had a town hall last night for Knicks Film School. At the very end of it, I ended up admittedly begrudgingly going Knicks in 5. And it was purely because I went back and I watched a lot of that game, the last game they played last Monday. And again, the turnovers, just like there's no reason for, they were not to say that the Hawks defense didn't play well. Those were unforced errors.
They were.
So many of the offensive rebounds, it was just like guys were in the clouds, who we would expect those guys to lock in more. The lack of an answer for Towns and the fact that Jalen Brunson, so he had a nightmare game for the first 3 quarters in that game. The thing that's interesting about the first 3 quarters, he got a lot of switches. Like Dyson Daniels actually was not on him for nearly as many shooting possessions as you'd think. And what I realized is like Dyson Daniels, look, he's 2nd defensive player of the year last year. You can screen Daniels off of you. You can he's not a Sar Thompson. He doesn't have that physicality. And I think as long as, theme of the year, as long as the Knicks play smart, as long as they play together, as long as they trust each other, I can't go so far as to pick sweep because I've watched this team for 82 games, but I will go Knicks in 5. I will be optimistic.
Okay. I'm going to say this. So I was never at 6. I was at Knicks in 5. Okay. But I like CP's energy here.
I love it.
I like that CP has said it with his chest. I like his points. I'm thinking, I'm deliberating. I'm kind of glad I'm going last. I'm thinking about possibly going with a sweep. I'm going to say this. A sweep would not surprise me at all in the least bit. And I'm going to go and say this. I think the Knicks will be up 3-0 in the series. I don't think it's going to be easy 3-0 in the series, but I think they're going to go up 3-0 in the series. I think also we'll know so much from how they come out in game 1 is going to tell me so much about this series. So much. We know the crowd's going to be lit. We understand all that. How the team, I think, responds. I think this team understands the situation. I think they understand the mission. I think they understand what happened last year. CP went and brought up the old stuff in game 1 against Indiana. I think they know where they want to get back to. I think this Knicks team is more focused. I think that's why we saw in the middle of the season in March, or towards the end of the season, I'll say, we saw some of the malaise during that 7-game winning streak when they were barely beating bad teams. But I just think the Knicks are too good for this Hawks team. And I do think they clean up some of the stuff that you talked about with the turnovers, J-Mac. I am a little concerned about how they guard the 3, but I think they figured this out in this one. I can't go sweep, CP. I can't be with you, but I'm gonna say Knicks. I'm gonna say Knicks in 5. But CP, if I think, because I could see them going up 3-0 and then playing with their food a little bit in game 4, and Atlanta somehow gets one out and they come back home and take care of business. I guess that's how I see the series playing out. So I'm gonna say Knicks in 5, but I hope I'm wrong, and I hope CP is right. And
can I ask you guys a question?
Sure, you can
real
always
quick.
ask a question. Yeah.
If this series does not go the way that I guess all of us think that it will go, and it's 2-2 after 4, and we're sweating out of game 5, what do you think happened? Like what went differently than you expected?
I think that if it is 2-2 after 4, I think it's likely that the Hawks have had some ridiculous 3-point shooting performances.
Okay.
Where we might be a little bit frustrated at how the Knicks guarded the 3-point line, which the Knicks haven't always done well, especially above the break threes. I think that happens. And possibly, I'm also going to add this, J-Mac. The Knicks, something happened to the Knicks where they lost the game, and I hate to bring up game 1 against
something
Indiana.
Crazy. Okay.
They lose a game where they blew, something crazy happens, or they blew a game that we all were sitting there and watching, and we're like, 4 or 5 minutes ago, this is a lock. They should close this out. And they didn't do it. They played with their food at the end of the game and didn't close out the way we would expect this veteran team with the closers they have in Jalen Brunson to close out. I think something like that happens. Now, I also want to add, I think it's a great question you're asking, J-Mac. Great question. If that happens, and all of us, if we do our shows and all this stuff, we're going to be sitting there on the show saying, yo, we are more stressed out about this than we should be. That we're feeling after 2 games. None of us want the. Listen, J-Mac, you're sitting back like this. You don't want any parts of that. You don't want that feeling at all whatsoever. No. And I think that will change a lot about, to your point that you brought up earlier in the show. I think it'll change a lot about how fans feel about the series, how they feel going into the next series. Mm-hmm. Listen, if there's 2-2 after 4, and the Knicks then crushed them in the last 2 games, because like how things play out matter. I think all will be forgiven. But I think if it's 2-2, it's because they kind of they played with their food and messed up with something in some way. That's my thing.
I think it's the shots, man. I think if they go ice cold, they're not disciplined, sloppy, whether it's on the boards or with the turnovers, and you have these, out of body games between Jalen Johnson and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And that's another thing, like, Alexander Walker's been fantastic this year. He stole his cousin's Arsenal. But to look for him to just be that consistent northwards of 20 plus, which is what it's going to take for me in the series for them to win, I'm not so sure. The evidence is just not there yet for me to be convinced that he can do that on every night in the playoffs against his team.
To answer my own question, I think it would be a situation where Jalen Johnson looks like the best player in the series through 4 games, and he is able to get the switches he wants when he wants, and the Knicks start collapsing the defense because he's been automatic from the mid-range, short mid-range all year. The Knicks defense starts collapsing. He's kicking out, and Hawks shooters are raining threes. I think that's the path towards the Hawks looking better, which is why, to go back to my X factor besides Cat, it's Wingstop. Can you do what you have to do to stay attached to that guy who is, again, he's going to make All NBA this year. He's an awesome player, but if you could shut down Jalen Johnson, I think you could shut down this Hawks team.
I like that. That's actually a really, really, really good question. All right, CP picked a sweep. J-Mac, you got Knicks in 5. I'm Knicks in 5. I hope I'm wrong. Listen, I'm doing these watch parties. Game 3, if game 4 they're gonna sweep, I'll have a broom in studio. You know what I mean? Be ready to do some cleaning up. Hopefully that happens. We'll see if that happens, guys. This is always fun. I'm glad we got to have a conversation before the playoffs, even though we had to do it remotely. Both of you will be doing watch parties, KFS and KFTV, throughout the postseason. Could you let the people know where they can come and watch? For game one, you guys are doing both. Let the people know where they can come out and watch these games.
Yeah, we're doing Penn 6, 31st Street, right down the block from MSG for game one on Saturday. I think that gets started at 4:30. And then we're doing watch-alongs for every playoff game. I will not be at the watch party because I will be watching right here in front of my screen. So if you the national announcers are not your thing and you want to watch the game with your boys from Knicks Film School, Knicks Film School YouTube channel is where it's at.
And no technical difficulties.
No technical. Oh my God!
That is the Knicks. Wait, the first game is on Prime, right? This Prime game on Saturday.
It is.
Yeah. If that happens,
CP man, what was going through your mind when you saw that?
I said you can't make it up.
You can't.
Yeah, and that game was an all-time classic last
game.
Great
game.
That was an unbelievable game, man. I mean, just unbelievable shot making. So many twists and turns in that fourth quarter. The Kobe White. Oh my goodness, what a game, man! But yeah, the technical difficulties and the backdrop of everybody in the league saying this is terrible for the RSNs. Amazon Prime going out like that. I mean, you just can't make it up.
That should be LaMelo Ball's new nickname, technical difficulties.
Yeah, right.
Well, that is the LaMelo Ball experience. That's a ride.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be at Slate for game 154 West 21st Street. We'll be there at 4:30. We'll also be doing watch-alongs on Knicks Fan TV as well, man. So we will also have some events coming up in Atlanta for our MSG South crew. So stay tuned for that. I'll send that over to you, Dexter, once we have that finalized and all that.
Yes, we'll put that out there. I also do want to say, I do think that's a factor in this series too. That you brought it up. We know Atlanta could be MSG South. I was just talking to my guy Sky Zoo yesterday. Sky Zoo. He just had his knee replacement surgery. Yeah. And he's like, Dex, I got this knee replacement surgery, and I'm in Atlanta, and I can't even go to these games. I was like, yeah, bro, it stinks. But Knicks fans will be in the building. I just want to say, Knicks fans are everywhere. They will be in the building down in the A. And I do think that's a factor in this series too, and why I think the Knicks are probably going to go up 3-0. But we'll see how it all plays out. Everybody to my right, that is CP the Fanchise. Check him out, Knicks Fan TV. To my left, my guy Jonathan Macri, the dean of Knicks Film School. Guys, man, I always appreciate you rocking with me on this because this is always fun. We had a good conversation. I know we will be on each other's platforms throughout this playoff run. This will be fun. Hopefully, it's a good long one. And I hope this is one for us, for all of us here, that ends with the Knicks in the NBA Finals. I want to see it for all of us, man. I just want us all to be doing content. Fingers crossed. And we've been waiting a long time for this. All of us, we're about the same age. We've been a long time for this, and so I think if we can see the Knicks in the NBA Finals, it'll be pretty dope, man. So I just want to thank y'all. I appreciate y'all, the work you do. I'm big fans. So thank you for coming on. Everybody, support these guys, as I said. It's playoff time. We got more coming up this week on New York Got Game. But that's going to be it for now. Peace and love to everybody. We'll catch you next time. Another edition of New York Got Game.
And thanks for watching New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka.